Hey everyone, this is Hannah with the Rocket Miner giving you today's daily video update. Today I want to talk about some recent events that we've heard about in Wyoming and how they fit into this ongoing discussion of the importance of freedom of speech and how far that can be carried one direction or the other. But to start off with, I wanted to just give you a quick update on COVID-19 numbers for Wyoming, since there have been some significant increases again. Today we have 974 confirmed cases in Wyoming, which is up 27 since yesterday. We have 256 probable cases, and with all of the cases and all the recoveries taken into account, we currently have 289 active cases for the state of Wyoming. We're also up to 48 confirmed cases in Sweetwater County, which means that we've had 3 new cases since yesterday. So obviously right now in the world and in America, there are a lot of different conversations that are going on and lots of different issues that are being discussed and that people have very different opinions about. Some of the biggest things obviously are COVID-19, and then some of the protests and recent conversations connected to Black Lives Matter and racial injustice. And I think that one of the biggest struggles that we have in our country right now, and one of the biggest downfalls, is that issues like this tend to get really polarized and really politicized, and you end up having people in different political parties kind of take different stances on issues that are ongoing, and people who go to kind of extreme ends of the spectrum on how they respond to issues. And there tends to be this attitude of, I am with this group, therefore I think this about this issue or topic. And then there's a lot of digging in behind that position and not being willing to listen to other sides of the argument, or just accepting this one point of view about this current conversation without listening to other points of view. And I think that that has caused a lot of problems in how people address these topics, and it's just kind of a downfall that there is this inability to have discussions and have friendly, respectful, civil debates with people to discuss these topics. And I think it ties into another interesting and important conversation, which is what I want to focus on today, that deals with freedom of speech and what we can and can't say about things, and then also how it relates to this concept of cancel culture that we see a lot of these days, and especially in regards to certain issues that people have certain opinions or take different sides on. Sometimes it feels like if you say the wrong thing or take the wrong side, you get shut down, pretty much. And I think there's a really interesting discussion to be had there about that concept. So I've been thinking about this because of recent things that we heard about that happened in Wyoming within the past week. The Gillette News Record reported recently that the Gillette City Council and the mayor asked Councilman Shay Lundvall to resign after, this is quote, learning that he had liked a handful of sexist and offensive Facebook posts. And then the Gillette News Record put out another story that was kind of the next stage in a response, because in response to that councilman being asked to resign and resigning, then you had a group of protesters and people in Gillette who reacted to this. They spent 90 minutes protesting outside of Gillette City Hall, and then dozens of the city residents packed the city council chambers to overflowing, demanding that former councilman Shay Lundvall be installed back on the council, and for the mayor and the council to step down. And that was another quote from the Gillette News Record story. And then also the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle recently reported that, quote, following a series of anti-Semitic and ableist tweets from U.S. Senate candidate James DeBrine, leadership from the Wyoming Democratic Party has called on him to withdraw from the race leading up to the August 18th primary. So you can read these stories for yourself at rocketminer.com. We have these stories from other Wyoming newspapers that give more details on both of these different instances and occurrences that we've seen lately. There's the two stories about the Gillette City Council, both the original story about what this council member had liked on Facebook that was offensive, and then the response from people who say that he should not have been asked to resign because of that, and who are now calling for the resignation of the mayor and the rest of the council in response. And then the story about the Senate candidate and the recent tweets that he posted and what those were saying. The stories give more details and more specifics on both of those situations. So you can read those for yourself. You can come to your own conclusions on both of those situations and what happened and what's the ongoing discussion about what should be done about them. And I'm not going to give a specific conclusion about those or about what I think about what was done or how it should be handled, but I thought that they were definitely interesting, that we saw both of these pretty close together, and that they bring up and tie into this larger discussion of the freedom of speech, of cancel culture, and how we respond to that. So I just wanted to give some thoughts and kind of weigh in on that discussion and try to look a little bit at both sides and give some perspective on the different arguments and both sides of this issue. So personally, I think that there is a balance in the middle of both sides, and I think that there needs to be a balance that we find between protecting freedom of speech and also holding people accountable for the things that they say. So on the one hand, freedom of speech is extremely important. We are a newspaper, so the freedom of the press is something that's really important and really integral to what we do. Freedom of speech connected to that, and the freedom of individuals to say whatever they want to, is an important freedom, and one that we hold very dear in America, that has been an important part of our country and our culture and what we stand for as far as freedom goes. And I rewatched the film V for Vendetta last night, which is a brilliant film, and it's really interesting and really feels really timely and hits really close to home right now with current things that are going on in our country. But rewatching that made me think about the freedom of speech and how important that is, because that shows kind of culture in which freedom of speech is not a freedom that people are given, in which things are censored heavily, and the government and the media control what's being said, and if somebody goes against the message that they want to put forward, that person is silenced dramatically sometimes. And this is in a fictional film in context, but I do think we see things like this happen in our world today in countries like China, and we have seen this in places where the government and the media control what is said, and if you speak against it and against the message that they want to put forward, they will stop you. And that's terrifying, and that is such a dangerous place to be and such a dangerous road to go down. So we have to preserve freedom of speech, because who controls, what's okay to say and what isn't? And if people start controlling that, they're going to start silencing voices that are speaking things that are true and necessary. So we never want to go down that road or get to that place where people are worried about being silenced or losing their lives for speaking up for what they believe or what they think about things. So freedom of speech is so important. And then it ties into this interesting concept that we see of cancel culture, is what it's usually referred to as, where people who say something that other people disagree with end up being fired or silenced in some other way, or canceled, having support withdrawn from them. And I do think that this is a really dangerous thing and can be extremely negative and harmful. And I think lots of times it is taken to extremes. And a recent example that I saw is in a TV series that I watch, which is The Flash on CW. One of their actors was recently fired. They said he won't be coming back for the next season because of racist tweets that he posted. But when I looked into it, I found out that those tweets were from years ago. And I looked at the actor's statement, and he said, yes, those tweets were wrong. I should have never said those things, and I am sorry, but that was years ago, and that's not who I am anymore. I know better now. I'm a different person. I've grown since then. So I think that this is a case where, personally, I think it was pretty extreme of them to say that he couldn't come back to the show, because if we're holding someone accountable for something that they did years ago, but there's evidence that they have changed, that they regret that they're a different person now, I don't think we should punish them for things that they did way back then. So I think that we have seen cases like that where that's kind of an extreme, and if somebody has shown that they regret their past mistakes and that they've moved on, that they know better now, that they're sorry, they're trying to be a better person, we should give them a second chance. And we should let people be different people now than who they used to be. So I think those are some of the examples of times where things are taken to an extreme, and that's a really dangerous road to go down that can cause a lot of damage, and that can restrict freedom of speech, and that can hold people accountable for things that we should have forgiven them for already and moved on from, that they're a different person now. But then, on the other side of the argument, I think there is the fact that we need to hold people accountable for what they say, and especially we need to hold leaders accountable for their character and for who they are and for what they're promoting and representing. I would like to point out again that both of the recent examples in Wyoming that we saw were from recent posts that these people had made or liked just within the past few weeks or so. And I think that one of the things we need to keep in mind is that for leaders, for people who are in positions of public authority, we should hold them accountable for the things that they say and do. And in those positions, they have a responsibility to represent the people who elected them and to represent the people that they are over and have power and influence over. So in that sense, they can't just say whatever they want to, because their words have extra weight and authority and impact. And for the most part, I think most people would agree that the people we want representing us and making decisions that will affect us, we want them to be good people who have good character. And if they say things or post things or like things on Facebook that indicate that they are inconsiderate of other people, are those the kind of people that we want representing us, that we want in those positions of power? And I think that I've heard a lot of people make jokes about political correctness and how, oh, we have to be politically correct these days, so we just can't say anything, or we're going to offend people, or we can't make jokes about anything anymore because someone's going to get offended. But I think that in most cases, when people are trying to be politically correct about something, it usually just means they're trying to be respectful of other people and of what other people have gone through and what they've been hurt by, and just to be respectful and kind of other groups of people. So if the only things that we can joke about are things that are at other people's expense, or that are demeaning or degrading or somehow derogatory towards a group of people or an issue, why are those the things that we want to joke about? And what does that reveal about who we are and how we think? So I think that there is this balance that we need to have, that we do need to protect freedom of speech, absolutely, because it's important. It's so important. But at the same time, we can and we should hold people accountable for what they say, especially our leaders. Words have a lot of power. And in the current age that we live in, where we have social media and people's words are being spread more than ever, and people in positions of authority are more in the limelight than ever, and their actions are under more scrutiny. The things that they say and do have power and have an impact, and words reveal a lot about who a person is and what they think and believe. So we do need to protect the right of people to say whatever they want to, because if we lose that freedom of speech, we're going to lose the freedom to say things that need to be said. And we don't want that taken away from us. But giving people the freedom to say whatever they want to, we also have to realize that when they say what they want to, it shows a lot about them. And it reveals their minds and their hearts and their attitudes that they have towards certain issues. And we can and should look at what those words say and what they reveal about who that person is. And if that person is in a position of power and authority, we need to look really carefully at, is this the kind of person we want over us and representing us and making decisions for us? So I just wanted to give those thoughts, again, not to necessarily draw conclusions about the recent events, but to offer kind of the balance of both sides of this question and see where we can find that balance in the decisions that we make and how we react to events and issues like what we've seen recently. So thank you for listening. We will keep giving you more updates with news and with our thoughts on things. So keep checking back with us, and I hope you have a good night.